arms fall off till your abs get hard and your moral of the story.
What is happening, guys? It's Nick Boleto from BoletoBrigade, back with another video for you guys. So, excuse my look. I just got back from the gym. I'm a little sweaty right now. If the sweat offends you, just go ahead and leave the video, because quite frankly, I don't want you even watching my videos, although I do need the YouTube money. Not serious. Alright, so today I want to talk a little bit about training volume, and this isn't going to be the typical video where I teach you how to track training volume, because by now most of you guys probably know how to do that. So I'm more so going to be talking a little bit about the intricacies of tracking training volume and how it's a little bit more complicated than just multiplying sets times reps times weight. So for those of you who are powerlifters, which I know is a lot of the people who watch my videos, this video may not be super helpful for you guys, because tracking volume for a powerlifter is pretty easy. You know, sets times reps times weight for squat, bench, and deadlift typically works, and even if you start to throw in variations, as long as you're consistently using the same variations over time, tracking just normal volume is probably going to work for you. But in this video, I want to talk a little bit more about how we should track training volume for people who aren't powerlifters, specifically people who are getting into, bodybuilding, hypertrophy kind of stuff. I just did 3 months straight of weightlifting over the summer, and I'm back at school now, and I'm probably not going to continue with weightlifting because, one, my workouts were really long and I just don't have that time to dedicate while I'm at school. And two, the workouts were hard, my body was pretty beat up, and during the summer that was acceptable, but during school I need to be able to dedicate a lot of energy to other things. And I also do a lot of walking at school because I live like a solid 20 minutes from campus, and I need to be able to get out of bed every day and feel good, honestly. So for those two reasons, I will not be doing weightlifting, and I will be moving towards more of a general fitness sort of program where I'll be doing a little weightlifting, still benching and squatting, and then doing some hypertrophy work. So I want to talk about how to track volume for hypertrophy. So the first definition of hypertrophy, sets times reps times weight, which we use pretty easily for powerlifting, isn't necessarily going to work for hypertrophy movements. And that's because there's lots of different avenues for hypertrophy work. So if we look at ways to train your biceps, for instance, there are, dumbbell curls, there's barbell curls, and then let's just use like a machine preacher curl, for instance. So for me, I can do sets of maybe 10 to 12 with 30-pound dumbbells for curls, but I can probably curl more like 80 pounds on a barbell. And then for like a machine preacher curl, I probably only use about 50 pounds. So if we're looking strictly at volume, that means that the barbell curl is going to be the best movement for me. However, we know that we get better contractions, and better contractions typically leads to better growth from doing unilateral movements. So then the obvious thing to think is, okay, well, maybe I should be doing dumbbell curls. But it's less volume. We know that volume is equated with mechanical tension, and we know that mechanical tension is a major driver of hypertrophy. So then it's like, why would you even waste your time using machines if I can only do 50 pounds on the machine preacher for sets of 10 to 12? Why would I even use that? Well, then, you have to look into stuff like strength curves, and, like a machine preacher typically is going to be heaviest at the top of the contraction, so when the muscle is the most shortened, and that is also a good way to force more hypertrophy. Typically we're really weak in the most shortened part of the muscle curve for a given muscle, so if you want to get bigger biceps, it might be better to spend more time in that sort of range. So it's kind of hard to say that one of those exercises is better than the other, and so to simply do the one that you can do the most volume with just doesn't seem to make intuitive sense. So another way to track volume would be to just look at the number of repetitions that you do. So there's a problem with this because if we look at maybe 3 sets of 3 with, let's say, 315 pounds on the back squat, then we look at maybe 4 sets of 12 on a hack squat. So then you're telling me that I'm going to stimulate 5 times more hypertrophy by doing 48 reps on a hack squat than I am by doing 9 repetitions on a back squat. And that again just doesn't seem to make intuitive sense because we tend to place more emphasis on a movement like the back squat. I mean, that is like one of like the gold standard movements that we love doing as weight trainers, as people who lift weights. So it just doesn't make sense to say that doing 5 times more repetitions on the hack squat is going to lead to 5 times more hypertrophy than the back squat. And, we don't really understand why that is, but we seem to intuitively kind of shy away from that. And then if we look at the volume on that, including the weight, I mean, the hack squat 4x12, I can probably throw 5 plates on there. So way heavier load than I can for back squats. And then we're looking at a volume of possibly 10 times more. So it just doesn't really make sense either. So another way that we can look at volume is just count the number of sets. So we can count the number of hard sets that you perform. And this seems to make sense because while we do value the back squat more, if we look at 4 sets of 12 versus 3 sets of 3, we know intuitively at least that the hack squat doing 4 sets of 12 is going to be better for hypertrophy, but we're not really sure of how much. So if we say we did 4 hard sets of hack squats versus 3 hard sets of squats, and in that equation then we're talking about the hack squats being 30% better for hypertrophy, just hearing that number seems to kind of make a little bit of sense. And I really like this definition of hard sets. Now there is still an issue of using this definition for volume, this definition of how many hard sets you do in, let's say, a given week. So if we go ahead and write down all of the body parts that we want to train in a week, let's just say chest, back, delts, biceps, triceps, quads, and hamstrings, and then I guess you can include like calves if you were a communist or something. And if you wanted glutes, you could probably just pair it with hamstrings, or you could have it separate, whatever. You write all your body parts out. So the problem then becomes how you actually count the sets. So Brad Schoenfeld did a meta-analysis on how much volume we should do per week, and he found that 2 to 3 times per week of 4 to 6 sets per workout seemed to be the best way to stimulate hypertrophy. So in a given week, we should be doing 8 to 18 hard sets, and that for natural lifters seems to work the best. So let's say that we do 4 sets of bench press. Do we count that as 4 sets of chest and 4 sets of triceps and maybe 4 sets of delts too? Do we say, okay, it's a little bit more chest than those other ones, so we count it as 2 sets of chest, 1 set of triceps, and 1 set of shoulders? Or, maybe you're close grip benching, so it's really just chest and triceps. It just gets really complicated then trying to figure out how we're going to do it. So I'd like to make a few suggestions now on practical ways to track volume over time. So the first thing that I would suggest is choosing a few exercises and doing them for at least 12 weeks, because you're just not going to be able to know what volumes worked if you don't do them for a prolonged period of time. The second suggestion that I'm going to make is just have a multifaceted approach to training volume. For lifts like the bench press, the back squat, any sort of like barbell lifts, it's pretty easy to just do reps times sets times weight, because those are going to be constant. 135 pounds in one gym is going to be the same as 135 pounds in another gym, and it's always going to be the same. And that goes for things like barbell curls, stuff like barbell rows, back squats, and we can actually apply that methodology also to dumbbell stuff. So you just have to choose whether you're going to add the total amount of weight in the dumbbells or whether you're just going to use one dumbbell as your weight. And then you're just going to compare the volume week to week to week. So if I'm using 3 sets of 10 with 30 pounds for dumbbell curls 1 week, and then, over time I get up to 4 sets of 12 with 35 pounds, as long as I calculate that volume the same way every week over the course of a training cycle, whether that be 4, 8, 12, 16 weeks, I can see as long as I'm adequately recovering, I probably got stronger and I probably have bigger biceps now. So you can use training volume for things that are going to stay consistent. Next, I would say to use sets for a lot of machine things, and however you choose to do it at the beginning of a training cycle, just continue to do that. So if you are going to, say, do barbell bench press, and you're going to count, if you're going to do 4 sets, let's say, if at the beginning of the cycle you say that's going to be 2 sets of chest, 1 set of triceps, and 1 set of shoulders, just make sure that every time that you do it, you have a proportionate amount of sets going towards those things if you decide that you want to try and count sets for your training volume. And I found that counting the volume, the more traditional like powerlifting way, along with counting sets, has yielded me quite a bit of progress. It's also just allowed me to actually know what's going on with my body. If 1 week I do 14 sets of chest, and then the next week I just am not able to really push as much weight as I thought I would be able to, then I know that 14 sets might just be a little bit too much for me in a given week, and I can dial back the volume a little bit. And another thing is, if you are counting, let's say bench press, if you do 5 sets of bench press, if you are counting that as 5 sets of chest, and then all of a sudden you're accumulating, let's say 25 sets of chest in a week, which, like we said earlier, 18 sets was kind of that max amount of volume that you wanted, but you're not feeling overreached or under recovered, then maybe you're just not using your chest as much as you think. You have to kind of look at exercises as, is this actually isolating the muscle, or is this muscle just a contributor in this exercise? So if you're doing 25 sets of chest, but over half of those are coming from bench press, whether that be barbell bench press, maybe an incline dumbbell press or whatever, you look at the number of like fly movements that you've done, and you only accumulated 6 sets of fly movements. Well, that's only like 6 sets that are truly 100% chest. Whereas, all of the other pressing movements are some chest, but a lot of other muscles as well. So, overall, you just sort of have to choose one way. You're going to track it, and just track it consistently the same for a long period of time. And it's more so about the changes in volume over time than it is how much actual volume you are doing. So anyways, I hope this video was informative. I hope it was helpful for you guys, especially those of you who do more than just squat, bench, and deadlift. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I would love to have a conversation about training volume. This is something that I've really taken a lot of interest in just the last couple of months. So I would love to hear what you guys have to think. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.